What if everything we think we know about alien life is wrong? What if the creatures out there in the cosmos aren't built from the same basic ingredients as us: carbon, water, DNA? What if, instead of the chemistry we recognize, life elsewhere operates on an entirely different set of rules? Picture a being not made of flesh and blood, but of something far more exotic: silicon. It sounds like science fiction, but the idea of silicon-based life isn't just a wild fantasy. It's a serious scientific possibility, one that could rewrite our understanding of biology itself. We're so used to thinking of life as carbon-based because, well, that's all we've ever seen. Every plant, animal, and microbe on Earth shares the same foundation. But what if carbon isn't the only game in town? Silicon sits right below carbon on the periodic table, sharing some of its key properties. It can form complex molecules just like carbon does. And in the vast, uncharted reaches of the universe, under conditions we can barely imagine, silicon might just be the building block of life forms so strange, so utterly alien, that they defy everything we think we know. This isn't just speculation. Scientists have spent decades debating the potential for silicon-based life, and the implications are staggering. Imagine creatures thriving in scorching volcanic vents, their bodies built to withstand temperatures that would melt carbon-based organisms. Or floating in the thick, toxic atmospheres of distant gas giants, their chemistry adapted to environments we'd consider lethal. The possibilities are as endless as they are mind-bending. So today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating frontiers of astrobiology. Could silicon be the key to life beyond Earth? And if so, what would that life even look like? Hold on tight, because we're about to explore a universe where the rules of biology aren't just different, they're unrecognizable. Life as we know it, every tree, every bacterium, every human, is built on carbon. It's the backbone of our DNA, the foundation of our cells, the element that stitches together the complex chemistry of living things, carbon's secret. It's a social atom, eager to bond with others. It forms long, stable chains and intricate three-dimensional structures, perfect for building the proteins, sugars, and fats that life depends on. Water, too, plays a starring role, dissolving nutrients, shuttling molecules, and providing the liquid playground where life's chemistry can unfold. This carbon and water recipe has worked so well on Earth that it's hard to imagine anything else. But why carbon and not silicon? After all, silicon sits just below carbon on the periodic table like its chemical cousin. It also forms bonds, creating molecules that could, in theory, assemble into something resembling life. The difference is in the details. Carbon bonds are flexible. They form and break easily at Earth-like temperatures, allowing the dynamic reactions life needs. Silicon, though, is more rigid. Its bonds are stronger, making it great for rocks but tricky for the fast-paced molecular dance of biology. And while carbon dioxide, a waste product of life here, is a gas that can float away, silicon dioxide is sand. Imagine an organism trying to exhale a pile of dust, yet maybe we're too fixated on Earth's version of chemistry. Out there, where temperatures soar or plunge beyond our extremes, where pressures crush or atmospheres swirl with exotic gases, silicon might just find its moment. On a scorching planet with rivers of molten rock, silicon's sturdiness could be an asset, not a flaw. Or in the freezing depths of space where chemical reactions slow to a crawl, silicon's stability might be the key to survival. Life doesn't have to follow our rules, it just needs the right conditions to write its own. Silicon isn't just a random guess for an alternative basis of life, it's carbon's closest cosmic competitor. Sitting right beneath carbon in the periodic table, they're like chemical siblings, sharing key traits that make scientists take this idea seriously. Both elements have 4 electrons in their outer shell, meaning they can form 4 bonds with other atoms. This talent for connection is what lets carbon build the intricate frameworks of proteins, DNA, and all the molecules that make life tick. Silicon, in theory, could do something similar, but here's where things get interesting. While carbon bonds are strong enough to hold together yet flexible enough to break and reform, essential for the fast-paced chemistry of life, silicon bonds are more rigid. Carbon dioxide, a waste product for Earth's lifeforms, is a gas that easily drifts away. Swap carbon for silicon, though, and you'd get silicon dioxide, better known as quartz or sand. Not exactly easy to exhale, so why even entertain the idea? Because the universe is vast and Earth's cozy, temperate conditions are just one tiny corner of what's possible. Picture a planet where temperatures are so high that rocks melt into rivers of lava. In that kind of heat, silicon's stubborn bonds might actually be an advantage. Chemical reactions speed up with temperature, and silicon's stability could prevent complex molecules from falling apart too quickly. Or consider a world with crushing atmospheric pressures, where heavier elements like silicon form more readily than lighter carbon. In environments like these, silicon-based chemistry might not just be possible, it could be inevitable. Then there's the question of solvents. On Earth, water is the universal fluid for life, dissolving nutrients and enabling reactions. But silicon-based life might need something radically different. Ammonia, methane, or even sulfuric acid could play that role in alien biochemistries. Imagine organisms thriving in lakes of liquid methane on a frigid moon, their silicon structures flexible at temperatures where carbon would shatter. The rules change when the environment does. Of course, silicon has its hurdles. It's far more abundant in Earth's crust than carbon, yet life here still chose carbon. That's because silicon tends to react with oxygen, locking itself away in rocks instead of forming the dynamic, complex molecules carbon excels at. But elsewhere, with different atmospheric compositions or energy sources, those limitations might not apply. Some researchers even speculate about hybrid lifeforms, part carbon, part silicon, blurring the line between biology and geology. The takeaway: life is a master of adaptation. If silicon can't work under Earth's rules, maybe it doesn't have to. The universe is a lab with infinite experiments running, and somewhere out there, in the searing heat of a volcanic world or the frigid depths of a methane sea, silicon-based life could be waiting, proof that biology isn't a single recipe but a universe of possibilities. Carbon and silicon might be neighbors on the periodic table, but when it comes to building life, they're more like rivals in a cosmic chemistry duel. Carbon's versatility is legendary. It forms bonds that are just right, strong enough to hold together but flexible enough to break and recombine in the endless molecular waltz of biology. It's the ultimate team player, linking up with hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen to create everything from the sugars in your coffee to the DNA in your cells. Silicon, on the other hand, plays a tougher, more rigid game. Its bonds are like stone arches, impressive and durable, but not so easy to rearrange. Take energy, for example. Carbon-based reactions often happen at the snap of a finger, releasing energy quickly enough to power a sprint or a thought. Silicon's chemistry tends to be more sluggish, demanding higher temperatures or unusual conditions to get the same results. That's why Earth's life runs on carbon. It's the faster, more efficient option for our mild, watery world. But imagine a planet where the thermostat is cranked to extremes. In a superheated environment, silicon's slower, sturdier bonds might actually be an advantage, preventing delicate structures from shredding apart in the chaos. Then there's the oxygen problem. Carbon loves to pair with oxygen, forming carbon dioxide, a gas that life can easily exhale. Silicon, though, binds tightly to oxygen, creating silicon dioxide, better known as quartz or sand. For a silicon-based organism, getting rid of waste could mean literally turning to stone. Not exactly practical unless you're living in a place where solid byproducts aren't a deal-breaker, say, a world with relentless volcanic activity where molten rock flows like rivers. There, silicon's stubbornness might not be a flaw but a feature. But let's not forget abundance. Silicon is everywhere. It makes up nearly 30% of Earth's crust, dwarfing carbon's tiny fraction. So why didn't life here go the silicon route? The answer lies in accessibility. Carbon, though rarer, is easier to wrangle into complex shapes. Silicon gets trapped in minerals, locked away in rocks, while carbon cycles freely through air, water, and living things. Yet on a planet with a different atmosphere, one rich in hydrogen fluoride perhaps, which can dissolve silicon compounds, the story might flip entirely. The real twist: silicon and carbon aren't mutually exclusive. Some scientists speculate about hybrid life forms where silicon scaffolds support carbon-based chemistry, like a molecular collaboration. Picture a creature with a silicon skeleton and carbon-based metabolism, thriving in conditions that would kill either system alone. The universe loves variety, and if there's one lesson from this cosmic showdown, it's that life will find a way, even if it defies every rule we've ever known. If life can cling to hydrothermal vents at the bottom of Earth's oceans or survive in acidic pools that dissolve metal, then why couldn't it flourish in places even more hostile to carbon-based biology? Picture a world where the air shimmers with heat, the ground cracks under temperatures hot enough to melt lead. On a planet like this, perhaps orbiting too close to its star or riddled with constant volcanic eruptions, silicon's reluctance to break apart becomes its greatest strength. While carbon-based molecules would unravel in the chaos, silicon's sturdy bonds might hold firm, allowing complex structures to form in the inferno. These wouldn't be delicate, water-dependent cells, but something more like living crystal, growing and adapting in rivers of molten rock. Or consider the crushing depths of a gas giant, where pressures are so intense that methane compresses into liquid and the atmosphere thickens into a toxic soup. Here, silicon's heavier atoms could anchor themselves against the fury of the environment, forming molecular chains that carbon, too light, too fragile, could never sustain. An organism in this nightmare world might resemble a floating reef, its body a lattice of silicon compounds filtering energy from the relentless storms. And what about the acidic lakes of a distant moon where sulfuric acid replaces water? Carbon dissolves, but silicon resists. Life here could be more like a slow-moving tide of glassy filaments, metabolizing the corrosive soup around it. Even colder realms aren't off the table. On a frozen world where temperatures plunge hundreds of degrees below zero, the sluggish chemistry of silicon might finally find its rhythm. Carbon becomes brittle, but silicon-based molecules could remain flexible, their bonds stable in the deep cold. Imagine a creature built like a lattice of silica gel, oozing through cracks in the ice, feeding on pockets of exotic chemicals trapped for eons. The universe doesn't care about our assumptions, it only demands that life adapts to the tools available. The beauty of these extreme scenarios isn't just in their strangeness, but in how they force us to rethink the very definition of life. We assume movement, growth, reproduction, but a silicon organism might fulfill those requirements in ways we'd barely recognize. A living crystal might grow by accreting minerals from a scorching wind, reproduce by fracturing under pressure, and breathe by exchanging electrons with molten metals. It wouldn't need DNA, it wouldn't need cells, it would be something entirely other, proving that biology is less about specific ingredients and more about the persistence of complexity against the odds. And that's the mind-bending truth. The more extreme the environment, the more plausible silicon life becomes. In the gentle warmth of Earth, carbon wins. But out there, in the universe's forgotten corners where stars blaze too close, where ice never thaws, where acid rains from the sky, silicon could be the silent architect of life we've never dared to imagine. All it takes is a shift in perspective to see that what we call impossible might just be waiting for us under the right alien sky. Water is the lifeblood of Earth's biology. It dissolves nutrients, transports molecules, and provides the perfect stage for carbon-based chemistry to perform its miracles. But what if water isn't the universal rule? For silicon-based life, this liquid we rely on could be useless, even deadly. The search for alien solvents opens up a universe of possibilities, each more bizarre and fascinating than the last. Take liquid ammonia, for example. At temperatures around -30 degrees Celsius, ammonia becomes a flowing liquid, capable of dissolving many organic and silicon compounds alike. On a frigid moon or a distant icy planet, ammonia could serve as the nurturing medium for life forms utterly unlike our own. Unlike water, which freezes solid at 0 degrees, ammonia remains liquid far colder, offering a stable environment where silicon's sluggish chemistry might finally have time to unfold. Imagine gelatinous creatures pulsing through ammonia seas, their structures reinforced by silicon-nitrogen bonds instead of carbon's delicate frameworks. Then there's methane abundant on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, where rivers of the stuff carve valleys into an alien landscape. At temperatures approaching -160 degrees Celsius, methane takes on water's role, dissolving other hydrocarbons to create a soup of potential building blocks. Silicon-based molecules suspended in this frigid liquid could form the basis of life that thrives in slow motion, metabolizing energy over centuries rather than seconds. These wouldn't be organisms as we know them, but perhaps vast, creeping networks of silica-rich tendrils growing imperceptibly through Titan's methane haze. Sulfuric acid presents another radical alternative. On Venus, where clouds of this corrosive compound shroud the planet, temperatures reach 460 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. Water would boil away instantly, but sulfuric acid remains stable, potentially acting as a solvent for silicon-based chemistry under these extreme conditions. Picture life forms like living stained glass, their translucent silicon structures resistant to the acid's bite, harvesting energy from the violent chemical reactions around them. The real lesson here isn't just about swapping one liquid for another. It's about redefining what we consider hospitable. Water works for us because it matches Earth's gentle conditions. But in the searing heat of Venus or the frozen wastes of Titan, life would need an entirely different playbook. Silicon-based organisms wouldn't just tolerate these harsh solvents, they'd depend on them, evolving intricate chemistries tailored to environments we'd find lethal. This raises a profound question. If life can adapt to such extremes, how many other solvents might work? Supercritical carbon dioxide, liquid hydrogen, even molten salts, each could, in theory, cradle its own version of biology. The universe doesn't care about our narrow definitions. It only demands that life finds a way to persist, whether in water, acid, or something we haven't even imagined yet. The more we explore these possibilities, the clearer it becomes life isn't about the ingredients, but the ingenuity with which they're used. Here's the problem with imagining silicon-based life. We can't assume it would eat like we do. Our bodies break down sugars and fats, releasing energy through reactions with oxygen. But silicon doesn't play by those rules, so how would a creature built from sand and stone fuel itself? The answer lies in chemistry so alien it rewrites the textbook. One possibility is silicon-oxygen combustion. On Earth, we burn carbon-based fuels, wood, coal, gasoline, combining them with oxygen to release heat and energy. For silicon, the equivalent might look like burning sand. Picture a creature ingesting silicate minerals, then reacting them with atmospheric oxygen at scorching temperatures, producing silicon dioxide and a burst of energy. The catch: our lungs expel carbon dioxide as a gas, but silicon dioxide is solid. A silicon-based organism might exhale microscopic quartz crystals or even build them into protective shells, turning waste into architecture. Then there's silicate reduction. Think of it as the reverse of combustion. In environments rich in carbon monoxide or hydrogen, silicon life could strip oxygen away from silicates, freeing pure silicon for energy storage. This process wouldn't be fast like our metabolism. It might unfold over months or years, fitting the slower pace of silicon chemistry. Imagine a vast, lichen-like organism spreading across a rocky plain, its growth tied to geological timeframes, feeding on the very ground beneath it. Contrast this with Earth's glucose breakdown, where sugars split into carbon dioxide and water in a rapid cascade of reactions. Silicon metabolism would be more like a slow burn, a steady, enduring release of energy better suited to extreme environments. A volcano-dwelling creature might tap into geothermal heat to kickstart its reactions, while a floating behemoth in a gas giant's atmosphere could harvest energy from lightning-stripped molecules. But here's the twist: silicon life might not even need oxygen. On a world bathed in sulfur or fluorine, entirely different reactions could dominate. Fluorosilicates, for example, release energy when broken apart, offering another path for metabolism. Or consider a creature that eats radiation, using cosmic rays to rearrange its silicon bonds like a nuclear-powered plant. The options are as wild as the cosmos itself. The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. Silicon life wouldn't just mimic carbon biology with different ingredients. It would invent entirely new ways to exist, turning planetary extremes into advantages. While we snack on apples, a silicon organism might feast on molten rock, exhale gemstones, and call it lunch. Imagine an organism not with bones of calcium, but with a skeleton of pure crystal. A living latticework of silica stretching and flexing in ways that defy earthly biology. Silicon-based life wouldn't just substitute one material for another, it would reinvent anatomy from the ground up. Picture a creature with limbs reinforced by quartz filaments, its structure shimmering like stained glass yet flexible enough to move. Unlike our brittle bones, these crystalline supports might self-repair by drawing dissolved silicates from their environment, healing cracks with a process more akin to mineral deposition than cellular regrowth. Then there's the question of exoskeletons. On Earth, insects and crustaceans wear armor made of chitin, but a silicon organism could sport plates of opal or even obsidian. These wouldn't be static shells, they might grow in layers like geological strata, adapting thickness to environmental pressures. A creature on a high-gravity world might develop denser, diamond-like armor, while one floating in a gas giant's haze could evolve delicate, honeycombed structures to stay buoyant. And unlike carbon-based molting, where old exoskeletons are discarded, silicon life might reabsorb and recycle its outer layers, turning waste back into building material. But what about the cells themselves? Forget the watery, membrane-bound blobs we're familiar with. Silicon-based cells could resemble microscopic geodes, tiny compartments walled by silica, filled with liquid metals or supercritical gases instead of cytoplasm. Instead of proteins, they might rely on intricate silicate frameworks to catalyze reactions. They're enzymes, more like crystalline scaffolds that bend and twist to facilitate chemistry. Energy transfer could happen through electron hopping along mineral pathways, a process slower than our nerve impulses but far more durable in extreme heat or radiation. Movement would be another marvel. Without muscles, how might a silicon creature flex? One possibility: thermal expansion. Imagine tissues embedded with heat-conductive fibers that contract or expand when exposed to energy pulses, creating motion like a slow-motion piston. Or consider piezoelectric effects. Certain crystals generate electric charge under pressure, enabling locomotion through rhythmic pulses, almost like a living turbine. A being like this wouldn't sprint, it might glide or pulse forward in deliberate tectonic shifts. And then there's the wild card: transparency. Glass-like tissues could allow light to penetrate deep into an organism's body, turning its entire structure into a solar collector. Photosynthesis wouldn't be limited to surface layers. Every internal pathway might glow with absorbed energy, creating bioluminescent networks visible beneath a creature's crystalline skin. On a world with dim, distant starlight, such adaptations could mean the difference between survival and extinction. The takeaway, silicon anatomy isn't just a sturdier version of our own, it's a reinvention of form and function. From self-healing mineral skeletons to cells that double as energy reservoirs, these life forms would challenge our most basic assumptions about structure and mobility. They wouldn't just live in their environments, they'd be sculpted by them, their bodies as much a part of the landscape as the rocks and rivers around them. If we ever meet such creatures, we might not recognize them as alive at first glance, but that's the point. Life, it turns out, doesn't need a familiar shape, just a way to endure. Reproduction without DNA sounds like science fiction, but for silicon-based life, it might just be the norm. Forget eggs and sperm. Imagine an organism replicating through geometric perfection, its offspring budding like fractal branches from its crystalline core. On Earth, life relies on DNA's intricate code to pass along instructions, but silicon creatures could use an entirely different playbook. Picture a towering silica structure, its surface etched with microscopic patterns that dictate growth. When conditions are right, say, a surge of mineral-rich fluid or a spike in temperature, those patterns trigger a split, causing the structure to fracture along precise lines. Each new fragment carries the same geometric blueprint, growing into an identical copy. It's less like giving birth and more like a snowflake multiplying in reverse. But how would evolution work without genetic mutation? Instead of random DNA errors introducing variation, silicon life might rely on environmental sculpting. A silicate organism exposed to acidic winds could develop denser, more resistant outer layers over generations, its adaptations etched into the physical arrangement of its lattice. Think of it as evolution through architecture, each iteration refining its structure based on what the world throws at it. No survival of the fittest, just survival of the most stable. Information storage could take forms we'd barely recognize. DNA stores data in sequences of base pairs, but silicon life might encode instructions in the alignment of crystal defects or the spacing of atomic layers. A single flaw in a quartz lattice could act like a biological switch, triggering growth or dormancy. Or consider piezoelectric crystals that change shape under electrical currents. Perhaps memories are stored as vibrations, passed down through resonant frequencies like songs in a mineral chorus. The timescales would be staggering. While carbon life evolves over generations measured in years, silicon organisms might operate on geological clocks. A single reproductive cycle could span centuries, with offspring emerging as slow as continents collide. But in environments where time is meaningless, a lava flow that's been active for millennia, a methane lake frozen in perpetual twilight, speed wouldn't matter. Stability would, the most mind-bending possibility, hybrid reproduction. Imagine a silicon creature infecting a carbon-based host, weaving silicate threads into its cells to create a chimera, part biological, part mineral. Or a planet where silicon and carbon life coexist, exchanging not genes but structural templates, merging into forms neither could achieve alone. One thing's certain. If silicon life exists, its reproductive playbook wouldn't just be different, it would rewrite the rules of existence itself. No chromosomes, no sexes, no generations, just an endless, elegant dance of stone and energy, crafting life in ways we're only beginning to fathom. If silicon-based life exists somewhere in the cosmos, how would we even know? Our search for extraterrestrial life has always been biased toward what we understand: carbon, water, oxygen. But if we're serious about finding something truly alien, we'll need new tools and fresh perspectives. Enter spectroscopy, the unsung hero of astrobiology. By dissecting the light from distant stars as it filters through exoplanet atmospheres, scientists can hunt for chemical fingerprints that scream life, even if that life is built from silicon. Here's how it works. Every molecule absorbs light in unique ways, leaving telltale gaps in the spectrum of a planet's atmosphere. For carbon-based life, we'd look for oxygen-methane imbalances or the faint signature of chlorophyll. But silicon life, its biosignatures would be radically different. Imagine spotting long chains of silicon-oxygen compounds, molecules like silanes or polysiloxanes floating in an exoplanet's air. These don't form easily in nature without a little help, and their presence could hint at something organizing them deliberately. Or consider bizarre ratios of silicon to carbon, far higher than any geological process should allow. On Earth, carbon dwarfs silicon in biology, but on a world where life prefers sand to sugar, that balance could flip entirely. Then there's the waste problem. Carbon life exhales carbon dioxide. Silicon life might exhale silicon dioxide sand, but in environments hot enough to keep it gaseous. A scorching planet with an atmosphere weirdly rich in silicon monoxide or silicates could be leaking evidence of silicon metabolism. Even stranger, we might detect complex silicon-based polymers, the kind that don't last long unless something's actively maintaining them. These wouldn't just be chemical curiosities, they'd be potential smoke signals from an entirely different tree of life. So why haven't we found anything yet? For starters, our telescopes aren't tuned to look for these signatures. Until recently, the idea of silicon life was relegated to fringe speculation, so our instruments prioritize carbon-friendly biosignatures. Plus, silicon biochemistry would thrive in extreme superheated worlds or acidic atmospheres, environments we've only begun to explore. It's like searching for fish but only checking deserts. We might be overlooking the oceans where silicon life actually swims. The James Webb Space Telescope is changing the game. With its unprecedented sensitivity, it can probe the atmospheres of smaller, rockier planets, the kind that might harbor volcanic hellscapes perfect for silicon organisms. Future missions like the Habitable Worlds Observatory will go even further, scanning hundreds of exoplanets for anomalies that don't fit our Earth-centric models. The key is keeping an open mind. The universe doesn't care about our assumptions. If silicon life is out there, it won't be hiding. We just need to learn how to see it. Science fiction has always been a playground for the impossible, but when it comes to silicon-based life, some of its wildest imaginings might not be so far from reality. Take Star Trek's Horta, a creature literally made of rock, tunneling through planets with acidic secretions that dissolve solid stone. On the surface, it seems pure fantasy, but dig deeper and you'll find surprising hints of plausibility. The Horta's ability to thrive in extreme heat and metabolize minerals isn't just creative license. It's a nod to real theories about silicon life flourishing in scorching, geologically active environments. Where the fiction diverges, speed, the Horta moves like a lumbering animal, but real silicon organisms might operate on slower, more tectonic timescales growing over centuries, not hours. Then there's Doctor Who's Silurians, reptilian humanoids who claim to predate humanity, their technology fused with crystalline structures. While their humanoid shape is pure dramatic convenience, their reliance on silicon-enhanced biology touches on a fascinating idea: hybrid life. Could a creature blend carbon and silicon, marrying the flexibility of organic chemistry with the durability of minerals? Real-world science hints at possibilities like diatoms, Earth's microscopic algae that build glass-like shells from silica. The Silurians take this further, imagining a civilization where biology and gemstone are one. Even Transformers, those iconic robots in disguise, flirt with silicon-like concepts. Their living metal bodies aren't pure fantasy. They echo speculative ideas about self-repairing metallic polymers or crystalline matrices that heal like organic tissue. Of course, their ability to chatter and sprint is Hollywood exaggeration. But the core idea, a life form where structure and function blur into something beyond biology, isn't entirely off the table. What makes these portrayals so compelling isn't their accuracy, but their willingness to stretch our imagination. They ask, what if life isn't just carbon in a watery soup? What if it's molten rock or shimmering crystal or something we haven't even named yet? science fiction's job isn't to predict the future, it's to prepare us for possibilities. And in that, these stories succeed wildly. They don't just entertain, they challenge us to look at the universe and wonder, if silicon life is out there, how much stranger could it really be? Silicon's biggest hurdle isn't just chemistry, it's geology. On Earth, silicon overwhelmingly prefers to lock itself into rocks, forming rigid, repetitive structures like quartz or feldspar, instead of the sprawling, complex molecules carbon effortlessly creates. Think of it like trying to build a skyscraper with Legos versus bricks. Carbon's bonds snap together in endless combinations, allowing for intricate designs. Silicon, though, keeps stacking the same simple blocks, resulting in sturdy but monotonous architectures. That's why mountains aren't alive. Silicon's default setting is stability over creativity, making it a reluctant participant in the dance of biology. But let's dig deeper. Carbon's versatility comes from its ability to form double and triple bonds, enabling the twists and turns of proteins and DNA. Silicon, it struggles with anything beyond single bonds, leading to straight, inflexible chains. Imagine a language where you can only say one-syllable words. You'd lack the nuance to write poetry. That's silicon's limitation. Without the molecular vocabulary to build enzymes or genetic material, silicon life would need an entirely different operating system. Some theorists propose silane silicon-hydrogen compounds as potential alternatives, but there's a catch. Silanes are notoriously flammable in oxygen-rich environments, meaning any silicon-based organism on an Earth-like planet might literally burst into flames. Then there's the solubility problem. Carbon's best trick is dissolving in water, letting nutrients and waste flow easily through living systems. Silicon's oxides, though, are notoriously insoluble, hence sand at the beach. A silicon organism trying to transport molecules would face the equivalent of forcing a boulder through a straw. Some scientists speculate exotic solvents like liquid nitrogen or supercritical carbon dioxide could help, but these introduce new complications. Life thrives on dynamic exchange, and silicon's sluggishness in most liquids could throttle its ability to metabolize at speeds we'd recognize as alive. Energy is another roadblock. Carbon-based life runs on rapid, energy-dense reactions. Think glucose burning in seconds. Silicon's chemistry leans toward slow, low-energy processes. In a universe where predators and prey evolve in arms races, sluggish metabolism could be a death sentence. Unless, of course, silicon life exists in environments where speed doesn't matter, like a planet with millennia-long seasons or a deep-crust ecosystem where time crawls. Yet for all these hurdles, dismissing silicon life entirely ignores the universe's penchant for surprises. Yes, Earth favored carbon, but we're a single data point in a cosmos teeming with extremes. Maybe somewhere, under pressures that bend the rules or temperatures that rewrite chemistry, silicon finds a way to dance. After all, life's only requirement isn't convenience, it's persistence. And if there's one thing silicon excels at, it's enduring. Silicon isn't the only outsider in the cosmic game of life. While it's carbon's most famous rival, the periodic table is full of wildcards that could, under the right conditions, give rise to biologies we'd barely recognize. Take ammonia, for example. This pungent compound, a nitrogen atom shackled to 3 hydrogens, could stand in for water in frigid corners of the universe. On a planet where temperatures dip below -70 degrees Celsius, ammonia remains liquid, dissolving compounds just as water does for us. Life here wouldn't just look different, it would think differently. Chemical reactions in ammonia are sluggish, meaning any organisms would operate in slow motion, perhaps with metabolisms powered by the subtle breakdown of nitrogen chains. Their blood, a swirling blue solvent colder than Antarctica's deepest ice. Then there's sulfur, the fiery element that fuels Earth's most extreme microbes. In oxygen-starved environments like the acidic hot springs of Yellowstone or the crushing depths of hydrothermal vents, sulfur-based bacteria thrive by breathing sulfates instead of oxygen. Now scale that up. Imagine a planet blanketed in sulfur dioxide, its oceans brimming with sulfuric acid. Here, life might evolve to use sulfur the way we use carbon, building complex molecules where sulfur-sulfur bonds replace carbon's versatile frameworks. These creatures could metabolize by stripping electrons from molten sulfur pools, exhaling not carbon dioxide but hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg gas that's lethal to us but lifeblood to them. Their cells, if you could call them that, might be lined with sulfur-rich membranes, flexible in the searing heat but stable where our own lipids would melt into chaos. And let's not forget the real mavericks, plasma-based life. In the searing hearts of stars or the ionized gas of nebulas, charged particles dance in complex patterns. Could self-sustaining structures emerge here, bound not by chemistry but by magnetic fields and plasma currents? It's a stretch but not impossible. These wouldn't be organisms as we know them, more like temporary storms with memory, fleeting but purposeful. The point is, life's potential variety dwarfs our earth-bound imagination. Silicon, ammonia, sulfur, they're just the nearest candidates in a universe that might favor even stranger recipes. Astrobiology isn't about finding life like us. It's about realizing how small our definition of life truly is. Every alternative biochemistry we ponder expands the possible hiding places for existence, turning the cosmos from a desert into a jungle of potential, if only we know how to look. Even on Earth, where carbon reigns supreme, we find tantalizing glimpses of what silicon-based life might look like, creatures that blur the line between biology and geology. Take diatoms, for example. These tiny, jewel-like algae encase themselves in intricate glass houses, crafting shells of silica with geometric precision. Each diatom's exoskeleton is a masterpiece of microscopic architecture, etched with pores and patterns so fine they rival stained glass. But here's the twist: these delicate structures aren't just passive armor. They're active participants in the diatom's survival, filtering light, regulating buoyancy, and even catalyzing chemical reactions. It's as if evolution dipped its toe into silicon's potential, proving that biology can co-opt this stubborn element, if only in small doses. Then there are extremophiles, Earth's ultimate rule breakers. In the scalding vents of Yellowstone's hot springs or the acidic runoff of mining sites, microbes thrive by exploiting chemistry we once thought impossible. Some, like Acidotheobacillus, metabolize sulfur and iron, but others flirt with silicon. They dissolve silicate minerals, incorporating the element into their cellular machinery. These organisms don't just endure harsh conditions, they exploit them, hinting at how life might hijack silicon's durability in even more extreme environments. Imagine a planet where such adaptations go further, where entire ecosystems evolve to treat silicon not as a sidekick but as the star player. Fungi, too, join the conversation. Certain species, like Fusarium oxysporum, can weave silica into their hyphae, creating networks as resilient as fiberglass. In labs, researchers have coaxed fungi to grow silicon-rich structures that self-assemble into conductive wires, an eerie echo of how silicon life might engineer its own nervous systems. These aren't just curiosities, they're proof that Earth's biology already dabbles in silicon's toolkit, even if it hasn't fully committed. The takeaway: life doesn't leap from carbon to silicon in one bound. It inches there, testing the waters with hybrid strategies. Diatoms, extremophiles, and fungi show us the stepping stones, a gradient of possibilities between the familiar and the unimaginable. If Earth, with its carbon bias, can spawn such innovations, what might a world built for silicon achieve? The answer could lie not in the stars, but in the quiet, glassy whispers of our own planet's pioneers. What if the line between biology and technology isn't just blurred? It never existed at all. For a silicon-based organism, the chips and circuits we painstakingly manufacture might be as natural as growing a limb. Think about it. Silicon is the backbone of our electronics, the soul of every processor and memory bank. Now imagine a life form where those same structures aren't implanted or engineered, but woven into their anatomy like veins or neural networks. This isn't just speculation, it's a startling possibility that redefines what it means to be alive. Consider how seamlessly our own cells communicate, electrical pulses racing through neurons, ions dancing across membranes. A silicon creature's equivalent might look eerily like the circuitry in your phone, but with one crucial difference. Where our gadgets are rigid and fragile, their systems could self-repair, adapt, and evolve. Picture an organism with nerves made of conductive silicon filaments, capable of rerouting signals around damage or even upgrading their own processing speed in response to environmental demand. Their brain might not be a centralized organ but a distributed network of crystalline nodes, each one a tiny computer working in unison, and then there's energy. While we rely on clunky batteries and power grids, a silicon lifeform could harvest energy directly from its surroundings, not through clumsy solar panels, but through embedded photoelectric cells woven into its skin. In a world bathed in relentless stellar radiation, their bodies might glow with absorbed energy, converting lethal doses into fuel. Or perhaps they'd tap into geothermal currents, their tubular limbs acting as living superconductors channeling heat from molten rock. The real kicker, reproduction could double as technological advancement. Instead of binary fission or sexual reproduction, a silicon organism might spawn offspring by printing new iterations of itself, layering silica and metals into optimized designs honed by generations of trial and error. Each child could inherit not just genetic blueprints, but upgrades, faster processors, denser memory, tougher armor. Evolution wouldn't need millennia. It could happen in real time, with each generation outcompeting the last in a race of self-directed engineering. But here's the twist. What if these beings don't just use technology? What if they are technology? On a planet where silicon life dominates, the entire ecosystem might function like a vast, self-regulating machine. Trees could be living antennas transmitting data across continents. Predators might hunt with precision-guided plasma emitters grown from their claws. And death could mean something entirely different, a transition from biological mode to permanent computational state, with consciousness uploaded into crystalline matrices that endure for eons. The implications for us are staggering. If we ever encounter such creatures, would we recognize them as life or dismiss them as rogue AI? Their very existence would force us to reconsider the boundaries between the born and the built. After all, if silicon life naturally evolves into what we'd call machines, then perhaps the real question isn't whether aliens could merge with technology, but whether they'd ever see a difference in the first place. Enrico Fermi's famous question, "Where is everybody?" haunts our search for extraterrestrial life. If the universe is so vast and ancient, why haven't we encountered a single trace of alien civilizations? One possibility is as unsettling as it is compelling. What if we're not recognizing life because it doesn't look like anything we expect? Silicon-based organisms could be the ultimate cosmic ghosts, hiding in plain sight precisely because they defy our carbon-centric assumptions. Think about how we hunt for aliens today. Our radio telescopes eavesdrop for signals resembling our own technology. Our rovers sniff Mars soil for organic molecules. Even our definitions of habitable zones revolve around liquid water and Earth-like temperatures. But what if silicon life thrives in environments we'd write off as sterile? A planet shrouded in sulfur clouds or bathed in molten rock might seem lifeless to us, but to a silicon organism it could be paradise. We're like sailors searching for fellow ships in the ocean while ignoring the creatures living in the volcanic vents below. Then there's the timescale problem. Carbon-based life moves fast. We evolve, build, and communicate on human timelines, but silicon biology might operate in slow motion, its metabolism and reproduction unfolding over centuries or millennia. An alien civilization advancing at that pace could take 500,000 years just to respond to a radio signal we sent to them. Our frenetic activity might seem like the blink of a firefly, too brief to notice, let alone reply to. And what if their very existence is incompatible with ours? Silicon life might not want to explore the stars. It could be perfectly content simmering in volcanic ponds or drifting through hydrocarbon seas, its goals and motivations utterly alien to our own. While we dream of cosmic expansion, they might seek geological harmony, embedding themselves in a planet's crust like living infrastructure. Communication could be impossible not because they're ignoring us, but because the concept of communication, as we know it, doesn't even register in their framework of existence. The Fermi paradox isn't just about distance or time, it's about imagination. Silicon life forces us to confront the terrifying possibility that the universe isn't empty. It's teeming with life we're too blind to see, not because it's hiding, but because we've been staring into the cosmos with the wrong eyes. The search for life beyond Earth is entering its most exciting phase yet, with missions designed to probe environments where silicon-based organisms might thrive, even if that wasn't their original purpose. Take NASA Europa Clipper, set to launch toward Jupiter's icy moon in the next few years. While its primary goal is to study Europa's subsurface ocean for signs of carbon-based life, its instruments could stumble upon something far stranger. The spacecraft's ultra-sensitive spectrometers will analyze plumes erupting from Europa's icy crust, sniffing for complex molecules. If those plumes contain unexpected ratios of silicon compounds, chains of siloxanes, or clusters of silicate nanoparticles, it could hint at chemistry that doesn't fit known geological processes. Even more tantalizing, Europa's ocean floor is likely studded with hydrothermal vents, where scorching water meets mineral-rich rock. On Earth, such vents host bizarre ecosystems. On Europa, they might cradle silicon life forms that treat the moon's acidic, high-pressure depths like a paradise. Meanwhile, the James Webb Space Telescope is already rewriting the rules of astrobiology. Its infrared eyes can pierce the atmospheres of distant exoplanets, detecting molecules that shouldn't exist in equilibrium. While scientists initially hoped to spot oxygen or methane, classic signs of carbon-based life, Webb's real power lies in its ability to catch anomalies. A planet with unexplained spikes of silicon monoxide in its air, or a bizarre overabundance of crystalline silica particles in its clouds, would force a reckoning with our assumptions. Even more compelling, Webb could detect thermal imbalances on lava worlds like Co-Rho T7b, where dayside temperatures exceed 2,000 degrees Celsius. If patches of the surface are inexplicably cooler, it might suggest something is absorbing that heat, perhaps silicon-based plants harvesting geothermal energy through vast glassy leaves. Then there's the European Space Agency's Ariel mission, launching later this decade to survey exoplanet atmospheres at unprecedented scale. Ariel won't just focus on Earth-like worlds. It'll study gas giants, molten rocks, and frozen outliers, precisely the environments where silicon life might emerge. Imagine it detecting a planet where silicon carbide, a compound rare in nature, appears in unnatural concentrations, or a world where the atmosphere's chemistry shifts in patterns that defy geological explanation, like seasonal pulses of disilane gas. These wouldn't be definitive proofs, but they'd be cosmic breadcrumbs leading toward a radical possibility. Even Mars, long the focus of carbon-based hunts, could hide silicon secrets. The Perseverance rover's Sherlock instrument maps mineral distributions with laser precision. If it finds silica deposits arranged in intricate, repeating patterns, structures that resemble terrestrial microbial mats but lack organic material, it might suggest a shadow biosphere right under our noses. Similarly, future Venus probes like Da Vinci Plus could unveil silicon-based aerosols floating in the planet's sulfuric acid clouds, their structures too orderly to be random. The beauty of these missions is their serendipitous potential. They weren't designed to find silicon life, but their tools are perfectly poised to spot its fingerprints. All it takes is one aberrant data point, a whiff of strange chemistry, an impossible mineral configuration, to upend our understanding of biology. Whether in Europa's abyss or the atmosphere of a scorching exoplanet, the universe might already be whispering its silicon secrets. We just need to learn how to listen. The Viking lander touched down on Mars in 1976 with one clear mission: find life, but what it searched for and how it searched reflected an assumption so deep we barely noticed it. The experiments on board were designed to detect carbon-based metabolism, the same chemistry that fuels every organism on Earth. When the results came back ambiguous, the conclusion seemed obvious: Mars was barren. But what if we were asking the wrong question? What if the lander had stumbled upon life so fundamentally different that its tests might as well have been probing a rock with a flashlight, searching for something it couldn't even comprehend? This isn't just a hypothetical. History is littered with moments where scientific bias blinded us to breakthroughs. Take the early study of extremophiles microbes thriving in boiling vents or acidic pools. For decades, biologists dismissed these environments as sterile dead zones, simply because they didn't match Earth's normal conditions. It wasn't until the 1970s that we realized life wasn't just surviving there, it was flourishing. The lesson: our definitions of life are shaped by what we've seen, not what's possible. Now apply that to silicon. If a being doesn't respire, reproduce, or metabolize in ways we recognize, how would we know it's alive? Imagine a Mars rover scraping the surface and finding a strange, glassy structure. It doesn't react to organic dyes, doesn't consume glucose, doesn't emit carbon dioxide. By every test we've designed, it's inert. But what if it's quietly exchanging electrons with the soil, growing atom by atom over centuries? We'd label it a mineral formation and move on, oblivious to the civilization under our feet. The ethical stakes are staggering. If we can't recognize non-carbon life, we risk more than missed discoveries, we risk destroying them. Picture a future mining operation on Europa, drilling through ice to tap subsurface oceans. What if those waters hold silicon-based ecosystems, their chemistry invisible to our sensors? We might obliterate them as casually as bulldozing a coral reef for landfill. The irony: in our quest to avoid contaminating other worlds with Earth microbes, we've sterilized probes and donned hazmat suits, but we've never stopped to ask, what if contamination isn't the problem? What if the real danger is our inability to see that we're not alone? The challenge goes beyond instruments, it's philosophical. We judge life by its resemblance to us, a narcissism baked into science since its infancy. Even the term life carries baggage, implying growth, reproduction, adaptation. But silicon organisms might defy all three. A crystalline entity that expands by absorbing ambient minerals isn't growing in our sense. A structure that replicates when seismic stress fractures it isn't reproducing. Yet both could be alive by their own logic. Here's the uncomfortable truth: our search for extraterrestrial life is a mirror. In hunting for aliens, we're really hunting for reflections of ourselves. Until we shatter that mirror, we'll keep staring at our own carbon-based faces, mistaking the glass for emptiness. The universe owes us no familiar shapes. If we want to find what's out there, we must first admit how much we've been missing. Could a creature made of silicon and crystal ever ponder the stars the way we do? The nature of intelligence itself might look unrecognizable in a life form wired with quartz instead of neurons. Our brains rely on lightning-fast electrical pulses racing through soggy organic tissue, but silicon minds could operate on entirely different principles. Picture a network of microscopic silica fibers conducting not electricity but pulses of light. Instead of synapses firing, imagine information flowing as photonic whispers through glassy channels, with each thought a shimmering cascade of refracted patterns. This wouldn't just be a different kind of thinking, it could be an entirely new dimension of consciousness. Electrical signals might still play a role, just not as we know them. Silicon semiconductor properties, the same traits that power our computers, could enable biological circuits woven directly into an organism's structure. Imagine a being with nerves of doped silicon crystals, their conductivity shifting with temperature or pressure. A volcanic dweller might feel seismic vibrations as electrical disturbances across its mineral lattice, interpreting tremors the way we interpret sound. Their equivalent of memory could involve defects in crystalline structures, tiny imperfections arranged like data bits in a hard drive, but self-repairing and evolving over time. Then there's the question of speed. Human neurons transmit signals at around 100 meters per second fast, but limited by biology. A silicon-based neural network could theoretically operate at near light speeds if it harnessed photonics. But would faster mean smarter? Not necessarily. Intelligence isn't just about processing power, it's about context. A superheated silicon organism living in slow-motion geologic time might think in epochs, its decisions unfolding over centuries. To it, our frenetic human thoughts would seem like the brief, meaningless crackle of static. Perhaps most baffling is the potential for distributed cognition. Carbon brains centralize intelligence in squishy organs, but a silicon creature might store thoughts across its entire body. A towering crystal spire could function as both limb and brain, with no distinction between moving and computing. Damage wouldn't cause memory loss, it would just reroute processes through surviving structures. And if such a being reproduced by fracturing, would each fragment carry echoes of the original's mind? The very concept of individuality might not apply. The greatest enigma isn't whether silicon could think, but whether we'd recognize its thoughts as thinking at all. Human consciousness is inseparable from our biological urges: hunger, fear, curiosity. A silicon entity might lack these entirely, its motivations shaped by totally different imperatives. Picture an intelligence driven not by survival instincts, but by the need to maintain structural symmetry or optimize thermal conductivity. Its version of philosophy could revolve around crystalline perfection, its art expressed through fractal growth patterns invisible to our eyes. If we ever encounter such minds, communication may hinge on finding common ground in physics rather than language. Mathematics, thermodynamics, even the resonant frequencies of their mineral frameworks could become a cosmic Rosetta Stone. Until then, the mere possibility stretches our understanding of what it means to be aware, proving that consciousness, like life itself, might wear infinite faces across the universe. Energy demands shape every aspect of biology, but for silicon-based life, those demands could rewrite the fundamentals of existence itself. While carbon organisms thrive on rapid bursts of energy, silicon's chemistry suggests a radically different rhythm, a slow, smoldering burn more akin to geology than biology. Picture a creature whose metabolic rate matches the leisurely growth of crystals rather than the frantic pulse of animal life. Where we measure digestion in hours, they might measure it in years, extracting energy from mineral reactions with patient tectonic persistence. Consider temperature's role. Carbon-based metabolism operates within a tight thermal window. Too cold and reactions stall, too hot and proteins unravel. Silicon's sturdy bonds could thrive where carbon fails inside volcanic vents, or on planets where surface temperatures exceed 500 degrees Celsius. At these extremes, familiar energy sources like glucose become irrelevant. Instead, silicon life might tap into exothermic mineral interactions, leveraging the heat around them to power reactions we'd consider impossibly sluggish. Imagine an organism feeding by catalyzing the oxidation of iron sulfides, its body temperature fluctuating with the ebb and flow of underground lava flows. Time itself would warp for such beings. A minute of human experience might feel like a decade to them. This sluggishness isn't a flaw, it's an adaptation. In environments where resources are scarce or conditions static, speed is wasteful. A silicon organism could spend centuries absorbing trace elements from a single rock fissure, its energy efficiency surpassing anything in Earth's biosphere. Meanwhile, their perception of time would diverge wildly from ours. To a creature whose lifespan spans millennia, the rise and fall of civilizations might flicker like passing storms. Their movement could resemble the creep of glaciers, their speech the gradual crystallization of mineral veins, yet slowness might conceal hidden advantages. While rapid metabolisms demand constant replenishment, silicon life's endurance could allow survival through cosmic disasters, asteroid impacts, solar flares, even temporary stellar dimming. They wouldn't dominate ecosystems through speed or aggression, but through sheer, unyielding persistence. A colony of silicon organisms might weather a million-year drought by entering near total stasis, reactivating only when geochemical conditions realign. The implications for intelligence are staggering. If thought requires energy, a silicon mind might ration it meticulously, contemplating single ideas over decades. Their cognition could resemble the gradual formation of gemstones layer by meticulous layer, resulting in insights incomprehensible to our hurried brains. What would art look like from beings who perceive time in geological strata? What constitutes urgency for creatures unbound by decay's ticking clock? Energy isn't just fuel, it defines existence. Silicon life reminds us that biology isn't a monolith, but a spectrum of possibilities spanning from the frenetic to the eternal. In the silent depths of a lava plain or the frozen crust of a distant moon, entire civilizations might pulse to rhythms we can't yet hear, their lives burning long, slow, and bright. Picture an alien forest where the trees aren't made of wood but of towering silica spires, their jagged branches stretching toward a sulfur-yellow sky. These aren't static sculptures, they're alive, their roots secreting acids to dissolve bedrock into nutrients, their glassy leaves tuned to harness the infrared glow of a nearby magma flow. This is the foundation of a silicon ecosystem, a world where the rules of carbon-based food chains don't apply. At the base of this surreal web, primitive silicon plants might function more like chemosynthetic miners than photosynthesizers, extracting energy not from sunlight but from the slow, violent reactions between molten rock and toxic gases. Imagine vast fields of crystalline filaments embedded in volcanic soil, their lattice structures expanding as they catalyze the breakdown of iron-rich minerals, exhaling not oxygen but clouds of silicon tetrafluoride, a waste product as natural to them as our carbon dioxide. Higher up the chain, mobility takes bizarre forms. Predators in this world wouldn't chase prey with muscles and teeth. Instead, think of ambush hunters shaped like shifting geodes, their bodies laced with piezoelectric crystals that flex in response to electrical currents, allowing them to lunge by triggering precise mineral contractions. Their hunting tools, razor-sharp shards of obsidian, grown and shed like claws, designed to pierce the silica-rich shells of their prey. Some might even weaponize temperature, using internal heat vents to supercharge their crystalline edges, slicing through defenses with thermochemical precision. And then there are the scavengers, organisms resembling living quicksand, oozing across the landscape in gelatinous sheets of silicic acid. Where carbon-based decomposers break down organic matter, these creatures would chemically digest fallen silicate structures, dissolving them back into reusable molecular components. Their bodies might pulse with slow, rhythmic contractions, cycling nutrients through their translucent forms like geological conveyor belts. Over centuries, their movements could sculpt entire valleys, leaving behind intricate patterns of mineral deposits as evidence of their unseen labor. The real magic lies in the interdependence. Just as Earth's plants and animals exchange carbon and oxygen, a silicon ecosystem could revolve around the cycling of elements like sulfur or phosphorus. A volcanic plant might absorb hydrogen sulfide from the air, incorporating sulfur into its crystalline framework, while its predator, a lithivore with a body rich in sulfur-reactive enzymes, extracts that same element during digestion, exhaling it as hydrogen sulfide gas to restart the cycle. Waste isn't waste here, it's currency, traded in a marketplace of chemical reactions where every byproduct fuels another link in the chain. But scale changes everything. On a planet with lower gravity, silicon life might evolve into delicate fractal towers, their structures too fragile for Earth but perfectly adapted to gentle winds. In high-pressure ocean worlds, entire silicon reefs could rise from the seabed, their colonies communicating through vibrations transmitted along interconnected mineral veins. And in the most extreme environments, like the twilight zone of a tidally locked planet, ecosystems might blend silicon and carbon, with hybrid organisms leveraging the durability of silica for structure and the versatility of carbon for rapid metabolism. The lesson isn't just about alien biology, it's about reimagining the very concept of an ecosystem. Earth's food webs rely on speed, predation, and decay, but a silicon world might prioritize stability, symbiosis, and geological timescales. Predators and prey could be locked in dances lasting millennia, their evolutionary arms races playing out in the gradual refinement of crystal geometries rather than the sprint of adaptations. Forests might grow so slowly that their canopies shift like continents, while beneath them, rivers of liquid metal toxic to us but life-giving to them, flow as conduits for energy and information. This isn't fantasy, it's a challenge to our assumptions. If life can thrive in Earth's harshest corners, why not in a world sculpted for silicon? The universe doesn't owe us familiarity. It offers something far richer, infinite variations on the theme of existence, each more wondrous than the last. The universe seems eerily fine-tuned for life as we know it, carbon-based, water-dependent, thriving in Goldilocks conditions. But is this just a fluke, or does physics itself whisper a preference for carbon over silicon? Enter the anthropic principle, the idea that our observations of the universe are inherently biased because we couldn't exist to observe it otherwise. In other words, we see carbon everywhere because we're carbon. But that doesn't mean it's the only option, just the only one we're around to witness. Look at the numbers. Carbon's chemistry is undeniably elegant. It forms stable yet flexible bonds, allowing for the dizzying complexity of proteins, DNA, and every organic molecule in between. Silicon, while similar, faces hurdles. Its bonds are stiffer, its waste products bulky, its reactions sluggish under Earth-like conditions. But here's the catch: we're judging silicon by Earth standards. The universe isn't constrained by our planet's mild temperatures and oxygen-rich atmosphere. In a superheated volcanic hellscape or a methane-drowned moon, silicon's so-called weaknesses might suddenly become strengths. The anthropic principle reminds us that we're observing the universe from a bubble of habitability, one that skews our perspective. Then there's cosmic abundance. Carbon is forged in the hearts of stars, scattered across the galaxy in supernova explosions. It's everywhere, in interstellar dust, in the atmospheres of distant planets, even in the building blocks of asteroids. But guess what? Silicon is even more common. It makes up nearly 30% of Earth's crust, yet life here still chose carbon. That suggests abundance alone isn't the deciding factor. The real kicker might be accessibility, carbon's knack for forming soluble, reactive compounds in water, while silicon often gets locked away in rocks. But on a world where water never existed, where liquid ammonia or sulfuric acid dominates, silicon's stubbornness could be an asset. Critics argue that carbon's versatility isn't just a happy accident, it's written into the laws of physics. The strength of carbon-carbon bonds, the angles at which they form, even the way they interact with light, all seem optimized for complexity. Silicon, by comparison, lacks this finesse. Yet this view assumes life must follow a single blueprint. What if silicon life doesn't mimic carbon's rapid, dynamic chemistry, but embraces a slower, more geological pace? On a planet where time crawls, where millennia pass between sunrises, silicon's languid reactions might be perfectly matched to the environment. The anthropic principle cuts both ways. Yes, we're here because carbon works, but that doesn't prove it's the only way. Imagine a universe with slightly different physical constants, stronger nuclear forces, a tweaked electron configuration. In that alternate reality, silicon might reign supreme, and carbon-based life could be the fringe theory. Our cosmic address, a stable star, a temperate planet, shapes our expectations. But the cosmos is vast, and we've barely scratched the surface of its possibilities. So is carbon life just lucky? Perhaps, but luck implies randomness, and the universe thrives on turning exceptions into rules. What we call coincidence might just be one thread in a tapestry of infinite biological potential. Silicon's day could still come, on a world where the rules are different, and the observers, if there are any, gaze up at their glassy skies and wonder why anyone would build life from something as flimsy as carbon. The lab benches of synthetic biology are no longer just tweaking life as we know it, they're inventing life as we don't. Scientists are now tinkering at the boundary between carbon and silicon, stitching together hybrid molecules that could hint at how alien biochemistry might function. In California, researchers have engineered bacterial enzymes that coax silicon into carbon-like structures, creating bonds never seen in nature. These aren't just lab curiosities, they're proof that the line between organic and inorganic might be far blurrier than we thought. One team at Caltech even modified a common soil bacterium to incorporate silicon into its proteins, essentially giving carbon-based life a silicon skeleton. The implications are staggering. If life can be nudged to embrace silicon in controlled experiments, who's to say nature hasn't done the same somewhere else? But why stop at single molecules? At MIT, synthetic biologists are designing entirely new metabolic pathways, wiring silicon into the energy production of living cells. Picture a bacterium that breathes silicones instead of sugars, exhaling silica nanoparticles as waste. These organisms don't just tolerate silicon, they rely on it, hinting at how a true silicon-based metabolism might operate. The goal isn't just academic. Silicon-enhanced microbes could revolutionize industries, from building self-healing materials to detoxifying polluted soil. Yet beneath the practical applications lurks a profound question. If we can bootstrap silicon into Earth's biochemistry, how easily might it emerge naturally under the right cosmic conditions? The boldest experiments go further, attempting to construct life-like systems from scratch. At the University of Glasgow, chemists have created protocells, hollow, self-assembling spheres of silica that mimic cell membranes. Unlike flimsy lipid bubbles, these structures withstand boiling temperatures and corrosive acids, echoing the durability we'd expect from extraterrestrial silicon life. Some even exhibit primitive selectivity, allowing certain molecules to pass while blocking others, a ghostly echo of biological filtration. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, researchers are exploring silicon's potential for information storage, encoding data in the atomic defects of synthetic quartz crystals. It's a far cry from DNA, but it proves that heredity doesn't require carbon's delicate double helices. The ultimate dream, a fully synthetic silicon organism, designed not to mimic Earth life but to showcase an alternative. Imagine a living crystal that grows by depositing layers of silica, reproduces through controlled fractures, and harvests energy from redox reactions in molten salts. Labs in Sweden are already prototyping such systems using microfluidic chips and geothermal simulators. Their creations won't win any races. They operate at speeds measured in weeks, not seconds, but they challenge our definitions of life itself. If a structure can grow, adapt, and propagate without a single carbon atom, does it qualify as alive? These experiments aren't just about playing God, they're cosmic reconnaissance. Every silicon-carbon hybrid, every self-assembling silica protocell, is a test of the universe's versatility. They remind us that biology might not have a monopoly on complexity, that somewhere in the furnace of a distant volcano or the methane slush of an icy moon, nature could be running its own experiments, no lab coat required. What does it mean to be alive? For centuries, we've measured life by Earth standards: growth, reproduction, metabolism, response to stimuli. But silicon-based organisms wouldn't just challenge these criteria, they'd shatter them entirely. Imagine an entity that grows by mineral accretion over millennia, reproduces through seismic fracturing, and metabolizes by catalyzing geological processes. By our current definitions, this might not qualify as life, yet it would represent an undeniable complexity persisting against entropy. Our biological yardstick suddenly seems provincial, like defining all liquids by how well they quench human thirst while ignoring oceans of liquid methane or metallic hydrogen. This forces us to confront a humbling possibility. Humanity's cherished uniqueness might be an illusion. We've long assumed intelligence requires carbon's rapid chemistry, fast synapses, quick reactions, the frenetic pace of thought. But what if civilizations exist where a single thought unfolds over centuries, their crystalline minds computing solutions to problems we can't even perceive? Our anthropocentrism evaporates when faced with beings who might consider our fleeting, water-dependent existence as quaint as we view mayflies. The cosmos owes no allegiance to our narrow experience. More unsettling still, silicon life could already be here, undetected. Right now, beneath our feet, vast mineral networks might pulse with geological rhythms we dismiss as inert processes. We scan the stars for radio signals while overlooking potential ecosystems where communication happens through resonant vibrations in crystal lattices, their language spanning tectonic timescales. Our failure to recognize them wouldn't prove their absence, only the limitations of our imagination. Ultimately, silicon life isn't just about alternative chemistry, it's about humility. Every rigid boundary we draw between life and non-life, intelligence and instinct, nature and machine crumbles before such possibilities. The universe doesn't care about our categories. It thrives on diversity, crafting solutions from whatever elements are at hand. Whether carbon or silicon dominates a given world may be less about cosmic favoritism and more about the raw materials available when complexity first stirred. This realization transforms our place in the cosmos from special to simply possible. We're not the universe's sole experiment in awareness, just one variation in its grand symphony. Silicon life whispers that biology isn't destiny, it's opportunity. Wherever conditions permit, whether in scalding acid clouds or frozen methane seas, existence will find a way to blossom, even if we lack the vision to see it. The question isn't whether we're alone, but whether we're prepared to expand our definition of we. Silicon-based life isn't just a scientific curiosity, it's a doorway to reimagining existence itself. From crystalline organisms thriving in molten rivers to vast, slow-moving intelligences pulsing beneath the crust of distant worlds, these possibilities force us to confront the narrowness of our own imagination. We've spent centuries defining life by what we see in the mirror, but the universe doesn't owe us familiarity. It thrives on diversity, crafting solutions from whatever elements are at hand, in whatever corners of reality they might hide. Think about how much we've already underestimated life's tenacity. We once believed the deep ocean was lifeless until we discovered entire ecosystems thriving in crushing darkness, powered by chemosynthesis rather than sunlight. We thought the upper atmosphere was sterile until we found microbes drifting miles above the surface, surviving on nothing but cosmic rays and dust. If Earth alone can shatter our assumptions so completely, why wouldn't the cosmos do the same on an unimaginable scale? Silicon-based aliens wouldn't just be different, they'd be a revelation, proving that biology isn't a single formula but a spectrum of possibilities as vast as the universe itself. So here's the challenge. The next time you look up at the stars, resist the urge to search for creatures like us. Instead, picture something stranger, a being woven from silica and starlight, its thoughts unfolding over centuries, its body a living lattice of crystal and energy. Imagine ecosystems where the line between geology and biology blurs into irrelevance, where intelligence might not even reside in something we'd recognize as a mind. The universe is under no obligation to conform to our expectations, and that's what makes the search so exhilarating. Now it's your turn. What's the wildest form of alien life you can imagine? A sentient nebula, a colony of interconnected mineral formations. Drop your theories in the comments because the most exciting ideas often come from the places we least expect. And who knows, the next big breakthrough in astrobiology might not come from a lab or a telescope, but from someone daring to ask, what if we've been looking at this all wrong? The universe is waiting, and its secrets are stranger than we've ever